I'm Lizzy.
And I'm Izzy, and we need help.
Each week we stumble through a new book, method, or concept that brings us one step closer to being our best self.
Yes, we make fun of ourselves.
And others.
But mostly just ourselves. So here's to not taking self-help quite so seriously.
Welcome to We Need Help. I'm Lizzy.
And I'm Izzy. And this week, we don't need misery. We don't need it.
We need to not be addicted to misery.
We need to not be addicted to misery. Amen.
Yeah, this is a tough subject. We're coming into Christmas. And I think it's a really important thing to discuss because we're getting bombarded with a bunch of our family and our friends and different energies. And we're also getting bombarded by our own insecurities. And I think that the more I've been studying up on this since we decided to do it, the more I realize that we are all plagued with a misery. It's a pretty big contender for something that's blocking joy. And I think we need to let's talk about misery.
Like, where do you think it comes from, misery? Like, why is it there? Why do people choose misery?
Well, I don't think it's an active choice. And the more the more I've been, since we talked about both wanting to do it because we're both being faced with it in different ways.
Yeah.
Misery is, I believe that it's learned as a child. I think it's a learned behavior.
How is it learned as a child? Like, how would somebody learn misery?
Well, let's talk about what it is. It's a state of suffering and want that is the result of poverty or affliction. It's a circumstance, thing, or place that causes suffering or discomfort, or a state of great unhappiness and emotional distress. Those are the three different definitions of misery. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this is I have a couple of family members that there's nothing that will take them, they always go find their way back to being miserable.
Yeah, I have family members who seem to seek it out. Like they seem to, if there's a situation, they will find the misery in it. Like it's almost like they will seek it out.
I think it's a way of life for families. And I don't think it always comes out like at your high points in your life, but I think it is a comfort zone for some families. And I think we learn it in our early childhood when our needs aren't met and we're seeing how our family is, dealing with different situations. I think it's something that we lean on as kind of like a comfort blanket, like a binky when you're a baby. If your family was addicted to misery at any point, you can easily go back there. And I think a lot of people don't realize if they're addicted to misery. So I came up with some questions.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this is, are you or someone you love addicted to misery?
Okay.
1, are you or someone you love, I'm sorry, let me start over. Does it seem no matter what happens, you or they are always upset over something? So
not me. Yeah.
There was a good 10-year period that I was like upset over something. So I can kind of relate to this. I was addicted to being miserable. The people I know, they will find something that is out of their control. A lot of times it's Trump, it's Biden, it's it can be something that's happening to the earth, something literally that they cannot control that they're upset by.
And they'll fixate on it.
They'll fixate on it. They'll be so upset. Do they get riled up over the smallest things? This is a good indicator that like the princess and the pea, that little pea is their problem. And it's all they can think about. and it's going to ruin their day. It's the guy in front of them that's going too slow on a beautiful day. Like you're driving down the road, the leaves are beautiful, the sun is shining, and some motherfucker is right in front of them going 5 miles too slow, and that's all they
That'll
fucking
ruin
care about.
it. Yeah. Yeah, they don't see the beauty of the forest because they focus on the ugliness of the tree. Like that tree's
Exactly.
ugly. And it's like, look at the beautiful forest. No, but that tree.
I've noticed that this personality that is this affliction, this addiction, um, it seems like life is only happening to them.
So yeah, like this victim mindset.
It's, you know, their situation is always just the worst.
Mm,
You know, death only happens to them. They've
yeah.
lost the most precious person on earth. They've lost their house being, something happening, their washer going out is just the worst thing that could be happening today because they had a load of laundry to do. Newsflash, motherfuckers, we all have laundry to do. It's all happening to, it's not, it's happening with us. It's not happening to us.
And I think the thing that is the worst about it is they spread it. So it's not just misery contained. It's like this virus that they want to like sneeze all over their hands and like wipe all over everybody.
It definitely affects others. I mean, even if they isolate themselves, it affects others because, you're missing out on the joy of them. We all have an inner joy that we're protecting through this misery. Like misery. And let me get with the
Yeah.
rest of the questions, and then
Yeah,
I'll.
keep going with the questions. This is good.
Uh, do they put people down for regular stuff? They're always
Yeah.
putting people
Oh my
down
gosh. Yes. That's the
for
worst.
regular stuff. Like
That's the
they're
oh.
stupid.
Ooh.
I'm like, have you never been stupid? Like, have you ever heard like somebody say, "Oh my God, they're just so stupid"? I'm like, I've been the stupid one. Like,
Yeah.
that's just normal. Stupidity is normal.
Yeah. I mean, I have family members who are like offended because they're somebody's like taking too much time, like fawning over a grandchild. Like
That's
like
crazy.
like because it's too much. Like and like there's like this hatred for
Yeah.
the
She's always
grandchild.
happy. She's always happy. Why is that pissing you off?
I know it's a baby.
Like, why is it so,
What
and
else?
like I've just noticed like they're always upset with somebody for something that has
There's always a
nothing to do with
resentment.
them.
If they're not in resentment, they're not breathing or something.
Yeah,
They're
and they're
alive.
just always first to put anybody down. It's like the worst. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
why? Um, do they never have enough? Like they always seem to be out of money. Always seem to be out of time. They always
Yeah.
seem to like there's always something that they don't have enough of.
Yeah. It's always a lack. They're in the lack. Yeah.
They're in the lack, like so dramatically in the lack, and they're being short on money is much worse than everybody else being short on money. Like,
Yeah.
If I had all the money in the world, it would somehow, I mean, I'm guessing like if I had billions of dollars, I would want more. Like, I want more. Why not? Are they inconsistent with their words? Like they'll say one thing, but their actions and their behaviors are different.
Mm,
So, they might say that they're a grateful human being, but when they take everything for granted,
yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
or they don't feel that I wanted to say one other thing. They also feel like other people don't deserve things.
That's the worst, right?
Weird. It's
Yeah.
weird.
That's the worst.
Our ordinary life changes just all consuming.
Mm,
I feel like that is a big,
yeah.
um, like okay, a move for you is you're just going to pack all your shit and move. It's
Yeah.
going to be like maybe 4 or 5 days of hell. It could take someone who's addicted to misery. They may never fully do it. They're anticipating it. They're frustrated about it. Everything is hard with it. They're going to get moved into their house. They're never going to be
I'm
fully
just
moved into their
exhausted hearing
house.
you talk about it. It's
Like nothing is ever done. Nothing is like, it's just like the normal everyday things are just so exhausting to them.
yeah. What else do you got? What else is there?
That's it. That's all I mean, those are just the ones I had, like, it was
Yeah.
just, I was popping off in my brain, just like, what makes somebody so miserable, And I could say, like, okay, their appearance usually isn't like on
Yeah.
point, but like, I've met miserable people that are so like on point beauty wise and put together wise. That's not it. It's
Yeah.
more that it's just they're consumed with the negative things. And I do find that even if something great is happening to them, they focus on the negative.
So I'm wondering, because this is the big question that I have. What are they getting out of their addiction to misery? Because they have to be getting something out of it.
It's called protection.
Okay.
And I'm just based on what I was looking at, and these things come, I think, from childhood. I do think that's where the seed is planted.
I'm wondering though, I'm going to debate with you on that a little bit, if I may, because there's people who've had horrible, shitty childhoods and do not choose misery. So I'm just wondering if it's genetic almost, like do you inherit the misery gene, or because it
Well,
seems to me like not everybody who's had a miserable childhood is going to be miserable, right?
so you know how alcohol is not somebody's problem, it's their solution when they're in an
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah.
I'd like to look at misery the same way.
Okay.
We may be raised in the same household and I may choose a different coping mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Gotcha. Love that. That I,
so,
some people choose this, some people choose that. So that's just the coping mechanism that is serving them for whatever reason.
and what it is doing is protecting them from the vulnerability that it takes to experience joy. And that is a, a big thing. Like it's scary to put yourself out there and say, I love my life.
Yeah.
And, joy is also, I think misery protects them from the work that joy requires, because joy, I always say there's no bigger pain in the ass than joy,
Yeah.
because it is something that you have to constantly focus on.
There's also this thing in Poland where people are afraid to feel joy because they're afraid to lose it. So they're afraid like the shoe's going to drop, the other shoe's going to drop. Like, it's like if I am too happy, it's going to get taken away.
I think it was Brene Brown that said foreboding joy is the end all be all and last resort of somebody who finally, yeah, the last resort to those protection mechanisms.
Yeah.
Because you could be in the middle of a joyful moment and be like, okay, but everyone here could die. You could, so, but joy is exhausting. Being happy ain't easy. Being grateful is work. Being authentic is vulnerable. Making the best out of a situation really takes mindful effort. And I think being miserable, just, it starts out small, or it might start out big. Like I experienced a huge death.
Yeah.
And, it gets me down and I start looking at what I don't have. And then my identity is this person that is the victim of whatever has happened. And for a moment, that is what you need. You need to, like, when something really bad happens, you need to shut it down and kind of get into an acceptance mode and stuff like that. It's the time when you don't get out of that acceptance.
Yeah.
It's when you start to identify as someone who's recovering from something bad.
Yeah.
You get stuck in that mode of being miserable, and then every decision that you make puts you back in that identity.
It's interesting. I'm also wondering how much genetics and like brain chemistry feed into it as well. Cause like in my family, we have part of our family is like this growth mindset, positive, hip hip hooray, no matter what's happening. And then I have this other part of my family that is complete misery. And I'm like, it's just interesting because it seems like my grandmother, most positive woman ever, she didn't work on being
Right.
positive. She just was that way naturally because she didn't have the tools to work on, like, she didn't, she came from the Great Depression and, whatever, and wars in Poland, and her son died and all of this, but she just naturally was positive. And that's how my dad is too. And that's how I am too. So it's easier for me not to be miserable. But I think the people who are naturally more miserable, genetically or whatever, biologically, that's where their challenge is to get out of that misery.
Well, and I don't know, and I like this is just for conversations. Like there is a toxic positivity out there too.
Yeah.
Like where you're just like, okay, everything, I'm whatever happens to me and it's good. Well, if your child dies, that's not, I mean, there's no way to fucking spin that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or if your husband dies, there's no way to spin that, that is in a positive way. However, it's happening to everyone. So, you know, finding some sort of silver lining does take a lot of effort in that. Like when Jacob died, I was so devastated and couldn't get my feet back underneath me for a very long time. Now, years and 100 years later, I understand that having him and losing him made me not take anybody for granted. It made
Right.
me a better person in all ways.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to kind of spin that. And, you know, but I do think I'm hearing you because I have some of my sisters, same genetics, you know, they a lot of times like they say, okay, well, I'm more realistic than you are. Like one of my sisters will say, you just remember all the good. I'm like, no, I just focus on the good.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if it's just if you're naturally predisposed anyway to be a bit more positive, so it's just easier for you. Like I truly believe it's easier for me to be more positive than my brother. Genetically, like I have in my mind, whatever my mind lights up in the more positive way just naturally, so it's easier for me to choose not being miserable.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to like think about like there just being natural dark seekers and natural light seekers. But I think we all cope in those times when we're a child and our emotional needs are not getting met or our physical needs are not getting met. There are ways that we choose to like that work for us in those moments. And then
Yeah.
those muscles become stronger
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stronger.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It's God, it's so hard because when you're around someone who's addicted to misery, I'm not saying your brother is or anything like that, but what I'm saying is like when you're around a family member that there's no way that they can be made happy for a long period
That's
of time.
that's the worst. And like, uh, does it affect you physically? Because being around somebody who's miserable, I feel like it's almost it can be contagious. Like, and it's the
It
worst.
is.
Yeah.
It's an emotional vampire
Yeah.
in a way. And even like for me, because of the way I grew up, it's like, I'm not safe if everyone's not happy. I don't feel safe. And, so for me, I really have to be careful about
Yeah.
when I have somebody around me and, the power that I give them, you know, but if you happen to be addicted to misery, I do have some tips.
Yeah, how do you get that's my one thing. How do you get out of it? And
Because
then
I remember when I was addicted to misery, when I moved up to Chicago from Central
yeah, tell
Illinois.
what did that feel like? What did that look like? Can you tell? I'm really interested because I can't picture you. I can
Being
picture you
addicted.
depressed and sad, but because your child, your baby died, but like I can't, why were you addicted to misery and what happened? Like walk us through that. That's interesting.
Well, my childhood was wonderful in so many ways. My mom was a very magic person and still is. But I had had a stepdad that suffered so badly with OCD, and he was extremely, extremely negative. And, he had a lot of positive things too. But like, I was coming out of that childhood where it was very, very volatile, in my opinion. And so then Jake died. So I was kind of, in a very, very scarce place there.
Yeah.
And then I went into some relationships that were very toxic, and I really, like, my lifestyle wasn't that great. And I remember I was in the middle of a fight with my ex, and I went into the bathroom and I said, I got down on my knees and I said, God, if just give me a window, I will fucking take it. I will
Mm.
take a window. And and the phone rang that very moment, and it was Verizon Wireless offering me a job in Chicago. And I went, and I ended up, like, saying that to my now ex, that hey, let's just take a break. I'll move up there. We'll work it out. You stay here. Well, I mean, just
Yeah.
that's code for we're never getting back together, everybody, in case you want to
Yeah,
know.
everybody. Yeah, if your significant other wants to move to a different part of the country, we'll talk about later how the logistics
It's
is over.
it's over. Just so you know, that's
You're
never
done.
working out.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I moved up there, I didn't have anything because I left everything, I
Yeah.
left a lot of my shit. I didn't have much anyway,
Yeah.
just early 20s and whatnot. But I simplified my life, and I had no money either. So I wasn't able to go out. I wasn't able to do anything. And I remember just walking around that apartment, and in such simplicity and silence, and just really, I mean, I would watch Steel Magnolias every single night because I didn't have cable. That's
Yeah.
all I had on VHS.
You had to steal Magnolias on a VHS.
Yeah, and I watch it every night. So which is why I can quote that movie pretty accurately. But
Yeah.
I remember, deciding, and I remember deciding at that time that I was the problem. And I realized that all of these decisions either were not mine to make, which is, death, or my
Yeah.
stepdad and mom. That relationship was so weird. But the relationship decisions that I fucking made. I took control of that. I took responsibility for that.
Okay.
And I decided at that very moment that I was the problem. And I think that that's a huge deal for somebody who's miserable and their life isn't what they want it to be. I think it's really important, the step to say, I am the problem.
That's, I don't know if everybody gets the grace of that clarity. Like, I wish the miserable people in my life would get that clarity. And sometimes I try to push them into that clarity, but I suppose, Lizzy,
You
there's
can't.
nothing anyone can do to push you into that clarity, right? Like it just had to come
No.
to you, right? Right. Okay.
Yeah. And every time I've been miserable since, short of my brother dying or my grandma, or, like
Yeah.
stuff that I can't control, I was the problem.
So,
Even if it was a friendship that fell and wasn't, somebody let me down, I fucking chose them as a friend.
yeah, I don't think a lot of people have that self-awareness that you have. Like, I wonder, okay, self-assessment, if you're miserable, what can you do? Like, what can you do?
Well, you need to, I mean, it just looking back, and this is not on my notes, but fully accepting that you are the one that is in the driver's seat of your life is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like that is, I think that, and go to fucking therapy like the rest of the world. If you can't really if you can't come down to it.
I think it's really interesting what you said about misery being addiction, because it's almost like the misery has to start taking away from you more than it's giving you. So that's when people stop drinking, because the alcohol stops giving, it starts taking away more than it starts giving.
Well, I have a friend of mine that I grew up with, I mean, from 0 years old. And she experienced the loss 15 years ago. And she will not get out of it.
Yeah, because I think
she's losing so much.
But I think it's still giving her something, and I'm wondering what that is. Like this escape, like I guess it's same with like people who are alcoholics. Some people die of it. Some people have a moment of clarity and decide.
A lot of people die of it, of misery. A lot of people, and they die alone. And their home is not what, their surroundings are just dismal because they want for it not to be their fucking fault. That's what we're running from, people. I mean, that's it.
What can we do? What are the tips? What do you got on there?
What do I have on here? I think that moving fights misery. If you get up,
your ass.
Move your ass. Whether, I remember during that time when I realized it was my problem, I laid on the couch for 3 days and cried. And I got up and I decided I was going to shower this down the drain and I was going to move. I haven't stopped moving since. Mixing things up. Basically, I had this crystal therapist tell me Lori Buchanan was her name, or is her name. And she said, what you're not changing, you're choosing. So
amen.
And that stuck with me. Like I get to choose. And if I don't like what my original choice is, I'll change it.
Yeah, that takes you out of the victim. It puts you, love it.
Make your fucking bed. Make your bed.
That's so funny. That's on when I got sober, I got a list of suggestions to do every day for 30 days. And that was number 1 is make your bed.
I would say this is just what I've observed, and I'm a very observant person because I had to be to survive. But I have noticed that people who make their bed are genuinely happier people.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Agreed. Yeah.
If you're in a miserable state and you don't like where your life is, make something better for someone else. It just takes the focus off of you.
Amen.
And it's a great time of year to start that because there are so many people that are, needing it. So why not?
I tell my sponsees this all the time, like go volunteer at a hospice or something. Like if you're feeling miserable, like go help some people, go to an orphanage, go feed the homeless.
People in addiction, whether it's misery, alcoholism, drugs, this whole thing, they're so focused on what's going on with them.
So self-centered.
Like focus on someone else, anybody else, do something that go out and just make somebody's fucking day better. Yeah. I mean, it's not, telling the truth about what is happening. And that is a real hard thing for people who are addicted to misery to do. It's telling the actual truth about what is happening. And what I mean by that is, let's just say somebody, is having road rage and they're addicted to road rage. Let's just say it's an addiction to misery. The truth is they left late. They didn't leave early enough. The
Yeah.
truth is, they're lacking grace for other people.
Yeah.
It's not anything to do with anybody else. Nobody's fucking you over by existing. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. There's just if you tell the truth about what's actually happening from a you in the driver's seat perspective, it really is, in my opinion, that's helped me a lot.
Oh my God, it's helped me. And then I look at it like, I remember one of my ladies that I was coaching called me in a rage because she borrowed money to somebody and they didn't give it back. And she was raging at this person. And I said, if you were a billionaire, would you care if they never gave you the money back? And she's like, no. And I said, it's because you don't have money. You gave somebody the last of your money. That's why you're so mad. And she was
You made an irresponsible decision.
yeah. I'm like, I said, for me, if I don't have it to give to somebody, I don't lend it to anybody.
Yeah.
And
like you made a bad decision. Like,
yeah, I'm like, you made a bad decision. Like, I said, anytime I lend somebody money, I'm giving it to them. And if they give it back to me, it's just a bonus. And but people have a hard time looking at their part.
It feels so bad to feel like a fool, but that's not the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, okay, I think, admitting that we're not always doing the right thing is really important.
Yeah.
The people that I notice that are the least miserable are the most likely to say, oops, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Oops, I'm sorry. I made a bad, I invested in a bad investment. I fucked that up. I shouldn't have started that business.
Yeah.
I said with my boxes the other day, I shouldn't have done this, this, and this. Like I made a bad decision.
And that's okay.
That's okay. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. And I think that accepting that nobody caused those mistakes, I made them.
Yeah.
Only give energies to relationships that are mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
As much as I want to, be in a relationship that is, selfless, it is just not a good thing.
No. You can't give to a bottomless well.
No.
You'll just dry it. Yeah. You'll die of dehydration yourself.
Yeah. And, your children can feel like a bottomless well sometimes, but you're investing in your own future with them. And that is just, but anything like any relationship that doesn't give you something positive, it's just don't be in it. It's martyrism is so 19th century.
Yeah.
Understanding your past and being mindful and forgiving. But admit the past, at least to yourself. You don't have to wear the t-shirt.
Seems like people with misery just tend to like not own any of their mistakes from the past, which is impossible to have not made any mistakes ever in your whole entire life.
Yeah, it's just at least being honest to yourself what has happened, because if you don't understand what you've been through, you're not going to understand yourself now, and you're not going to at least accept it and let yourself move on. When you start to feel stress, make it a fact-finding mission. Like when I start to feel irritated or frustrated or doom, like this is a good example, when I'm getting ready to do something, if I am feeling like, if I feel doom, that is a fact-finding. Why do I feel doom?
Yeah, almost like a fascinated anthropologist. Like let's look at this. Yeah.
What am I doing? Why am I experiencing this? And then act upon it. Like if it's doom, it's because this person doesn't bring you anything to the table, doesn't make you better in any way, doesn't make you laugh, this, that, and the other thing. Don't do it. But you have to put yourself in the driver's seat again.
Yeah.
You're not obligated to do anything.
Yeah.
Besides take care of your children.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a good one. Identify and listen to the people that love you the most. And that identify is the hardest thing because it may not be your mom or dad or your brother or your husband or wife. But these people are the ones that are literally love you, not unconditionally. They love you clearly.
Yeah.
They see you clearly. And identifying them is really hard. But once and these are the people that when you leave, you feel better.
Yeah.
Your heart longs for them, not from you're gaining anything from it, but your heart just genuinely longs for the person that they are and their company.
Yeah.
But listen to them when they're giving you signs like you're being weird.
Yeah.
You're being inconsistent. You're being like, your energy's off. Listen to them.
Yeah.
Pay special attention to your energy, the energy of others around you, and block what doesn't serve you. And the older I get, the more I rely on my energy and how I interact with people. And I think that that's a really important thing.
Yeah, I use my energy as like almost like I view it as currency. Like how much am I willing to give to certain people? And yeah, I view it as a currency in a way.
Now, my question is, and I have nothing else written down. Mike, this is just now. We're
Couple
free.
tips as well. So I have a couple
Okay,
tips.
good.
Yeah.
Give me
So
them.
don't feed it, right? Like I notice miserable people will call others and they think they're just getting it off their chest, but really they're calling loads and loads of people to reiterate their story, to strengthen their story of misery.
Okay.
And to maybe have one person that you do that with, but not do it. Like you have an option. Like you can douse it with, if you get that fire of misery, you can just add like logs to it and gasoline.
Oh, I've done that for people.
Yeah. Or you can take a glass of water and just pour it over and try to like stop it. Right. Like,
Yeah.
stop spreading the misery. Like, stop feeding it.
You can't be miserable around somebody who's not willing to be miserable. Have you noticed that? Like, I've been in a shit mood and you're like, you know what you should probably do is like, write some things you're grateful for. I'm like, well, fuck this. I can't be miserable around her today.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm all for like, you can shit in your pity pot, just get up and flush when you're done. Like, stop like stinking up the whole world with your misery. So like, I'm all for like a good bitch session, but I'm not going to call like 10 of my friends and complain about my life and spread the misery. Right.
And that person should not be the person you dump on, should not be your husband or wife.
Yeah. And oh yeah, definitely.
You need to, that's not right.
Therapist or your child. I'm sorry, but if you're a parent and you're dumping
your
child, fuck off. Really?
I agree. Yeah.
Because you have no one else. Get a therapist then. That's what you pay somebody to take your
wipe your ass.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. Somebody. You're wiping your shit all over everybody.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Another thing is like,
I love you.
Here's how I fixed being miserable. Whenever somebody called me that I disliked, and I really did this, I would sit down and write 3 things that I liked about them. And so my mother-in-law, she was super irritating, my chick's mom. And
may she rest in peace.
May she rest in peace. God rest her soul. She would call.
Because that's about the only person who could do it.
Even God's like, eh.
Ooh, that's a doozer.
No, but every time she called, I would like my eyes would just go into roll mode, like, oh God, here she is again. So she started calling, and I realized I didn't want to dislike this person because she gave birth, to my partner, and like she's, like I want to have a good relationship with her. So every time she called, I would take out a Post-it, stick it, and I would write down 3 things that were positive about her.
Yeah. Like her salt shakers.
I'm
She's
like,
got really nice salt shakers.
sometimes has a nice sweater. So no, I would write like, she's got a nice smile. She knows how to tell a joke. She's a really great cook. And I started doing this every single time. And by the end of when she passed, I was looking at text messages that we were sending back and forth. And my last text message to her was like, I love you so much. Like it was like a really nice one. And I wouldn't have sent
Right.
that earlier on because I just decided misery is optional. It's a choice. And I would
It is a
decide to
choice.
choose differently. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
Choose positivity. Choose it. It's hard.
Just making the best.
Yeah.
And knowing your where your sphere of influence is. It's like you can't get upset about things that you have no control over.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything
Exactly.
else? Anything else that you have?
Yeah, just not to feed, sometimes doing the opposite of feeding the misery. So doing the opposite action of what you really want to do. So when you want to talk shit about somebody, say something really positive about them. You're really good at that.
Yeah.
You won't feed the
I
negative.
will not talk shit about somebody
Yeah.
with a random person.
Yeah. Find the good in everybody, no matter what. Like just force yourself to do it as an exercise.
Yeah.
And doing the opposite action. So I remember once I was, this is kind of a funny story, but Maciek was, when we lived in London, he was really busy. He had a high powered job. And he told me one day he was like super busy. And so I called him up and just in the middle of the day, and he's like, what happened? And I said, nothing. I just wanted to say hi. He goes, I told you I was busy. And he hung up the phone. And I was like, oh, and a miserable person would be like, I'm never talking to him again. I'm never going to call. And I wanted to punish him for not being
Ooh.
so loving towards me. But instead, I made a choice. What would the opposite action be of instead of misery? So I said, he's really busy. So I went to his favorite restaurant, got lunch to go, called his PA and said, hey, Karen, I know Maciek's super busy. Can you just give him this lunch? I'm downstairs. Brought him lunch. I did the opposite action. And through that process, like I was no longer miserable. He was no longer like it was all happiness.
Right.
So doing
And you got to lay a line of guilt on his ass.
exactly. So one of the
Duh.
one got it's up to Steve now. But
That's
like,
actually that's like even better than punishing him in a more overt way.
just I think it's our responsibility, at least I'm gonna do it, to not feed misery. And doing it is very difficult. It's easier to be miserable, but
I think the tonic, or that's not the word I'm looking for. Like the way away from misery and always is through grace. Offering yourself grace, offering everyone grace, and you were saying misery loves company. And I wanted to say, a lady or a friend of mine, I was talking to her and she said, so and so is not who she says she is. I said, what? She goes, yeah, she talks about everybody behind their back, you, me. I said, did she talk about me to you? And she was like, no, 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 no. And I was like, well, how do you know then? And she goes, well, I was talking to another person and she said that she talked shit about all of us. And I said, well, I mean, what about that other person? Like, you do know that it's impossible to talk shit about somebody alone. So she must have been talking shit about, they were talking shit. And now, even worse, like if you talk shit about somebody and like to another person, and then you go to the other person, and is that three-faced?
You're three-faced. You're fucking three-faced.
You're fucking three-faced. And like we all talk shit, right? I've talked shit about people. You've talked shit about people. But the thing, I think the worst thing you can be is three-faced, where you go to the other person and try to act like you weren't talking shit when it's impossible to talk shit around
Yeah, there's a giver
somebody
and a receiver of the shit. So
you can't, like, if try to talk badly about somebody to me.
okay. Yeah, my neighbor's a piece of shit. She's really annoying.
It sounds like she's got a lot on her mind,
Yeah.
or maybe she doesn't feel unheard, or maybe she feels unheard. Do you see how I just said didn't talk shit about your neighbor?
Yeah.
Like,
Love it.
like you got to repel that shit.
Yeah, love it.
Well, you'd hang up and go call somebody else, but I'm just saying you cannot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
and my friend was like, I never even thought of that. I'm like, yeah, like the person came to her three-faced and said this other person was talking shit about her and never said we were both talking shit about you.
Yeah.
And now I'm not loyal to her anymore. And I'm not a loyal person. You should probably know this from right now. But they were talking, so it's like, that is misery multiplied.
Misery multiplied. Yeah, I have a mentor, one of my mentors, and she always says, like, whenever somebody starts talking shit about somebody to her, she always says, you know what? I think Frank's just doing the best he can. And that's like my favorite sentence. Like, I think he's just doing the best he can, and she always kind of says it like in a light. And I really like the way she says that because it's not condemning the person that's talking shit. Because that's another one. Like when you're like, well, I don't talk about people, like, okay, get off your high horse.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you do. You're just not wanting to do it now.
But I think Frank's just doing the best he can is quite a nice one. So
yeah, or even saying like, I love Frank. I know he's doing the best he can, and I know we all are, right? And getting their agreement like that is like,
love that.
It turns it around.
It does. Well,
yeah,
we're the anti-misery warriors, I guess.
Well, and just admitting that there are going to be moments that we fall into misery and, just getting out of it. But I do think that we need to admit that it is a condition.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an addiction.
Yeah.
So if you need help,
good luck. we can't help you.
Tell us. We don't want to listen to your shit.
All we're going to do is talk behind your back and then tell everybody about it.
How miserable you are.
Wow, that one's fucking miserable.
Jeez, there's no hope for her.
Oh my God. Well, we love you.
I love you. See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday. For joining us this week on We Need Help, the podcast.
Make sure to like, subscribe, like again, our YouTube channel, our Instagram, follow us wherever you can. It really, really helps us out and ensures that you won't miss any future episodes. So, yep, thanks to you, we can keep going.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.